What do you got going on? Do you want to talk about whatever we were talking about yesterday?
Yeah, I do. I want to talk about boundaries and I've been thinking about it more. I'm still a little confused. Uh, so on the questionnaire, I had a questionnaire that I was filling out, and it was in relation to codependency. Like that was a questionnaire or the survey, whatever it was. What's the word that you call those things as a questionnaire? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. Yeah, that
Assessment. It
sounds
was an
right.
assessment. Uh, and one of them was, do you do you or are you able to set boundaries? And I kind of got a little hung up on it because I was trying to figure out, what does boundaries even mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then I was like, oh, are you trying to figure out what boundaries mean because you don't have boundaries, which is the question? Or are you trying to figure out what boundaries mean because you're you're trying to figure out what they mean by boundaries in the realm of codependency? Or like, so I got in my head about it a little bit. I ended up answering the question. I don't know if I should tell you how I answered it before we do this whole like bubble exploration, but I feel like boundaries is really subjective.
Well, like when you were talking about it yesterday, what I was thinking was it's hard because it indicates separation,
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
which
Right.
on the one hand, we are like we talked about this in another episode about it being like a quilt and we're all on the same quilt, but we have our different patches. So it's just the concept of it in general creates separation. It creates the idea of, and I want to preface this by saying I'm not talking about this negatively. I'm just talking about the vibe that comes forward from the word and the
Mm-hmm.
concept. It's like it creates separation. It
A right versus wrong, a little bit
creates a right
feels
versus
like.
wrong. It creates like protection, like a need to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, there's the whole thing, and we've talked about this before, but it's like the whole thing in the culture that we have right now, which is like, oh, that word is triggering to me, so don't say it.
Right.
And it's like you're responsible for your reaction. Other people are not responsible for making sure that you don't have a reaction.
Yes, I completely agree. And I agree as someone who absolutely gets triggered by other shit that people say. So, like,
Right.
it's
There's
not that
not.
I say this because I don't get triggered. I do. And sometimes in the moment, I forget that it is my responsibility. But eventually I remember.
Well, yeah, because the triggering is going back to a wound. The point is that the triggering goes back to a wound that you haven't healed yet. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
that particular word or situation or circumstance or experience wouldn't trigger you because that particular word, experience, circumstance, situation doesn't trigger everyone.
Right.
It only triggers you, meaning Candy or whomever I'm talking to right now, um, because you have wounding around that. This is what
Right.
we all need to remember. This is
Mm-hmm.
how I
Mm-hmm.
see this. So, what the fuck is
Ooh.
somebody from Middleburg, New York is calling me? Go away. I put you on silent. I don't understand how phones work. Okay.
But thanks for the reminder. I don't know if
I
mine
had it
is.
on silent, but it vibrates, I guess. So it's now sitting on the table with the microphone vibrating. So I put it on the bed. So you be quiet over there. Um, yeah. So like to me, it's kind of in that realm. When you say like, when people say like, do you have boundaries? I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, it's kind of like when I told that friend of ours to fuck off, and she was like, my friends don't talk to me like that. And I was like, huh, okay. I guess that's her boundary. Bye.
Yeah.
Um, and then immediately got into a thread on a like an astrology channel that was like, hey, does anybody in here have Mercury and Venus? Venus and Mercury? No. Is that right? Those are two different planets. What am I talking about? Oh, like they're Aries, their Venus is in Aries. That's it. That's
Mm.
me. Venus is in Aries. And then all of a sudden, like this friendship's over and you're like, whatever. Because it's like, okay.
Bye.
But then I thought about it and I was like, I could tell Candy to fuck off and she would know that I was in a bad place and she would be like, are you all right?
Yeah, I'd be like, oh God, let's chat tomorrow unless we really need to chat right now.
Right. Like, you okay over there? So like her, like I know that like the people that really know me and again have done their own work or like, I don't know, like that friend was triggered by that. But in my opinion, the response, like if I were her, I would have been like, dude, I must have done something that pissed you off or hurt your feelings, or you're in a bad place. And maybe I should ask that question instead of being like, my friends don't talk to me like that.
Well, that's the problem. Like that's what happens, right?
But that's her boundary.
Yeah. Oh, but also like, I think we might be we're heading in a direction that I want to explore. Like, so let's use that example. Let's say it's Laura and let's give your friend a name, Nancy. So Laura and Nancy are friends and they're in a conversation and Nancy does something that Laura disagrees with. Laura says, I don't agree with that perspective. And then Nancy replies back, I don't agree with your perspective or whatever. Eventually, like this what starts as a discussion escalates to Laura saying, fuck off.
Fuck off, Nancy.
Fuck off, Nancy. By the way, it's way more fun to say this person's real name, but we'll stick with Nancy. Fuck off, Nancy. Because you're hurt. So like some part of you is hurt or wounded or triggered, whatever. And then that triggers her hurt, wounding trigger. And then she like responds back by slapping a boundary in place. My friends don't talk to me like that. And so like both of you have kind of thrown up boundaries. Like your fuck off was a boundary. My friends don't talk to me like that is a boundary. So my whole point is that boundaries by definition exist if there's not wounding sitting around them?
I mean, right? Exactly.
Like this is what I can't, this is where I get stuck on like, wow, like, is it even healthy to have boundaries? Well, I know it is, but then I'm like, but is it?
I think so. Like, I think it is, especially if you're going through something. Or you like for me, that was, I mean, at least for now, that friendship is over, and I'm actually glad because it was an exhausting friendship. So it had to end dramatically, I guess, because otherwise I'd have to slowly creep away and be like, sorry, I just can't stand talking to you anymore. Is that like, you know what I mean? So my boundary was, I just don't want to deal with this person anymore.
Right.
Like so it's exhausting.
Right.
So like it was a clusterfuck how it ended, but it worked out because she's the one that ended it.
Yes. So
you know how those guys like torture you until you break up with them? It was like that.
Yeah.
I was the guy.
Right. Yes. But so again, I think we're on to something here that feels aligned with why I was struggling, because you and I have never talked about our boundaries.
No, I don't need boundaries from Candy. I don't need boundaries from even like my sisters or my parents, really. I'm just like, oh boy. Maybe I did at a time. There's a time like, okay, there was a time where I couldn't watch the news.
Boundary. Mm-hmm.
Like I went through, like, it's like you're sensitive, you're feeling everything, and the news is just entirely too much. I've moved past that and now I'm fine. Sometimes I need a break, but usually I'm pretty much fine.
So I feel like, and I hope we're not offending anybody who might listen to this conversation. That is not at all my intent. My intent is to get to the bottom of what I'm feeling around this. And maybe you align, maybe you don't. I feel like if there is no wounding that we're trying to protect ourselves from, there is no, like the boundary question doesn't come up. It's not even in the realm of conscious, like you're not even thinking about it. You're not even creating it. You're not projecting it. So right. Just alone by this assessment asking that, obviously it's assuming that there is an issue, but we don't talk about it from the perspective of, I'm asking you if you have a boundary because clearly you're being triggered by something. So I want to see where your boundaries are. Like, you know what I mean? Like
right. The question has the like, in the entire history of everyone talking about boundaries. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, and it's not a specific enough question.
Correct. And the question implies that something within you is broken enough that you need boundaries.
Or that if you don't have boundaries, you're not broken. You're not doing things right.
Right. Yes. That's why I was stuck. I glitched out. I was like, oh my God, I don't even know how to answer this question.
Like, it's supposed to, like, you should have boundaries. Like, you don't have boundaries. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Right. And on some level, I completely get that. But then also, I'm like, yeah, but if I have to throw up a boundary, that is something for me to look at. And I get to
I
make a
just,
decision.
yeah.
But
I,
go
I
ahead.
want to welcome everyone to Overthinkers Anonymous. This is,
Welcome to OTA. My name's
yeah,
Candy.
Jesus. But no, I love got this kind of shit though. This is what we're doing this.
Oh my
Because
God,
you're
it's
kind
so
of feeling into the
true.
nuance too of like, I mean, I was talking to an avid listener yesterday to our podcast about this, and she was talking about the podcast we just released, which is about that
Distractions.
post. No, the post.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know what it's about because I don't listen to us because I'm like a movie star and I can't stand to watch myself.
Yeah,
You know
it
what I
was
mean?
about the post that you made, and we ended up talking a lot about distraction
Well, it
energy.
wasn't a post I made. It was a post that Mark guy
Oh yeah,
wrote.
yeah,
That's like
that's
an
what I meant.
influencer. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, she was kind of like, I was like, what I was trying to say, I was like, oh, what we're trying to do in this podcast is get people to feel into the underlying energy of other people's stuff. So, like, when you read an assessment and it's like, do you have boundaries? The energy for me is just reading that and feeling into it is you're fucked up if you don't have boundaries.
Exactly.
And then, and I'm like, I've never thought of myself as someone that needs to put boundaries into place. But I think anytime you're like, I don't want that to be part of my world, because this is what I thought of just a minute ago before we were talking, is Lee Harris's video for July of 2025. He's an intuitive that does prediction videos. They're amazing.
Amazing.
Amazing. And he is talking about ask yourself this month, what are you willing to allow in your life? So the opposite of that is what do you not want to allow in your life? And that is a boundary. So
Yeah.
like let's say like I meet someone new and I'm like, oh no, their vibe is like I feel like ugh, and just being like, I can't, this is not a person that I want to have as a friend in my life because it's not doesn't feel good in my tum tum or whatever. That is a boundary. But I think
Mhm.
when I hear that, it's like so black and white. What are they talking about? Like, I will never be in a relation. I will never have friends that cuss. Like, is that
Oh
like a
man.
boundary? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it could be so black and white. I think that's one of the problems.
Yes. Is it a
But I can see where
boundary? Is it
she's,
a
I mean,
belief?
you're like trying to figure out where someone's at. Like, it's a good question to ask.
Yeah. I
But
think
I mean,
I'm
that's
back to
true.
I don't know.
Well, yeah. Well,
Let's see what the bubble says. Let's see what the bubble says about boundaries.
okay.
So
Wait,
I'm going
am
to
I
ask,
answering or are you
yeah,
asking?
I'm
Okay,
going
I'm
to ask
answering.
Laura to go into the bubble and to see what they have to say about boundaries. What do they want us to know?
They're really excited about this. It's like I just picture us all sitting around a campfire and they're like rubbing their hands and they're like, let's get into this. Um, okay. What do they want us to know about boundaries? The first thing they're saying is, as humans, we like to set things in stone and we should stop doing that.
So true. Yeah.
And they're referring back to an earlier part of the conversation where we were talking about sometimes you need them. So they're just basically like, if you feel the need to set them, just first off, number one, it's not permanent. Don't let it be permanent because you change, we change as humans so much that something you set, like they're like never say never kind of thing. So um, they're basically like reiterating what we've already said. Like they're a protection, and sometimes we need the protection to heal. So if you think about the framework of, they're just showing me the news example. It's like you needed that to heal.
Right.
So if you're setting these boundaries and things up, whether it's between you and another person or you and a thing, or like, you know, people who are addicts, they have to step away from the substance. It's like all those things are all boundaries. So they're just like, you might need to they're showing us how we were both vegetarian for a while. Long time actually.
We had a meat boundary.
Yeah, we had a meat boundary and now it's like whatever. but they were like, that was, and we've asked this in the bubble before, and they're just reiterating it, not on this podcast, but between the two of us. And they're basically saying, like, stepping away from eating meat can, for some people, be a way to like change their frequency and vibration. But again, it's like, just let it be temporary, let it be what it is for as long as it needs to be. But generally speaking, boundaries are for healing.
Oh, I like that so much.
So you sometimes have to, and they're reminding me now because I was telling Candy, like, there's Oprah just released a podcast episode with Laura Day, and she's like OG intuitive teacher, intuitive. And she was, and I tried to listen to it again to find the thing I was thinking about that she said, but I couldn't find it. But basically, what I felt like she was saying about herself was like, she just is like, and I'm interested to hear what the higher selves have to say about this, but it's almost like her like field, her energetic field doesn't have any boundaries. So she feels everything from everyone. And this is a problem for intuitives, because people that are sensitive, because they do feel what other people are feeling and they don't want to feel it. So they want the other person to heal. So then they like latch on trying to help them heal because they're feeling what the other person's feeling. It's like this convoluted mess, which I think is kind of where that codependence, like in like therapy speak, codependency comes in. But why did they start me down that? Oh yeah. So they're kind of showing it as like a thing where you're like, they're showing like an aura that has like no edges. And then like the idea of putting up edges around your aura. So it's like a firmer, firmer edge. Fuck, I don't know. The board, like if you were looking at a drawing of it, it's like, it just, the edges sort of just like dissipate. And then, or you could draw like a hard line around it. So
like a border.
Like, you might need,
boundary.
yeah, like a border, a boundary. So you might need at times to draw those boundaries to work on yourself. I mean, they're saying the same thing. It's like both energetic. It's both an energetic type of boundary and like a mental kind of boundary, emotional and that kind of thing. So, but they're just showing another reason why you might have to draw boundaries, just because you are emotionally sensitive. People might.
Yeah.
They're like, everyone's different in the emotional sensitivity that they have. So you just have to check in with yourself to see if that's true for you. Not you, Candy, you, everyone. And like, you know, there's like meditations you can do and like stuff Candy and I've done in the past where you're like, is this mine? If it's not mine, I don't want to feel it. When you start to, because you're trying to understand like what's mine, what's someone else's, so that you can work on your stuff and other people are free to work on their stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like. No. This is all really good stuff. I like it a lot. I was going to say, like when you are sensitive or empathic, which I think those two things are sort of synonymous. If you're sensitive, it's because you're empathic. If you're empathic, you're sensitive. Like, I think they go hand in hand. That whole energetic boundary and asking, is this mine? Is this theirs? Is important, because when you can feel it all, you feel it as if it is your own. It's not like you're feeling it and you're like, oh man, Laura's really sad today. You're feeling it and you're like, fuck, I'm sad. What just happened? Laura just walked in the door, but Laura doesn't make me sad, but I'm sad. Oh, is this mine or is this Laura's? And when you ask that question, you immediately get an answer, but you don't get an answer until you ask the question. So yeah, it's hard because it just it's soup, just becomes soup. It just all gets mixed together. And then especially if you're around a lot of people or a lot of really heightened situations, it's tough to know what is yours and what is someone else's, or what is tied to the circumstance. And then we just get in our own heads and we start telling stories, and then we're down a rabbit hole.
Well, and this is reminding me of, again, the telepathy tapes. I know, shocking. How they're talking about like in the future, and we're all telepathic and we can all just read each other all the time. It's like you would, like, knowing what someone's feeling and feeling what they're feeling creates more empathy. So,
well, and I think if we were able to telepathically read each other, right? Because telepathically, you might walk into the room and telepathically tell me I'm sad, but your human might not tell me you're sad, right? Because there's also the conditioning that happens on the human level that might not happen in the psychic level. Like
Right.
on the psychic level, we might be, we might completely own all of our emotions and be like, oh my God, like I'm so sad today. But the human's like, I got to put on a brave face and like bury my stuff down. I don't
Yeah.
know. Guess we'll
Yeah.
find out in the future.
I guess so. Okay. So wait, now I feel like we need to get back to boundaries.
Okay.
Okay, well, I guess that sits with like you answered the question. So do you want to say what you answered?
Yeah, I answered. And I think the question was, do you have problems setting boundaries?
Mm.
And I
Okay, that
think
makes
that's,
sense. So it's not do you just have boundaries,
yeah.
right?
Do you have problems? Are you able to set boundaries? And that's what pushed me down the question mark, because I was like, well, I'm able, but is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, am I like, what is my motivation behind setting boundaries? So, but yeah, I mean, I at the end of the day, I can set boundaries. That is not how the question was asked. I have to, God, because I'm like, no, I can answer it. So that's not how the question was asked. We can keep talking and I'm going to figure out how I can find out exactly how the
Well,
question
I
was
think the
phrased.
follow-up too is like if you need to set a boundary, are you like following, do you follow through with it
Yes.
too? I mean, that's another important piece of it. If you need that protection or that safety for yourself, but like it's easy to cave, you know what I mean? I think.
Oh my God. Yes. It's so easy. It's, it's easy to cave, but it's also, I don't know, maybe this is just what it is to be sensitive and quote unquote codependent. It's easy to cave, but it's also easy to understand why somebody might have behaved the way they did.
Hmm.
So then it, in other circles, would be labeled as a justification versus an understanding.
Yeah, and I think that's back to that Lee Harris thing where he's like I think when you reframe it as, do I want to allow this in my life?
Yes. See, that's such a better way to phrase it. Do I want
Right.
to allow this? Am I in
Because
alignment with this? Do I want to allow this in my life?
it's open and it's clean versus boundaries like a wall that's crusty.
Oh, here's it. Oh God, I should have just looked at this before we started talking about it. So let's back up for a second. The assessment is called codependency warning signs. Okay, well, right there, we're already in a bit of a defensive mode. I'm just like,
Right.
oh, okay, this is how we're going to tackle this. I see. And it is check off the codependency warning signs that apply to you. Having poor boundaries.
Okay, having poor boundaries. Oh, that's
Right.
interesting.
Yes. God, I should have looked at the question because I was like, why did I get so hung up on this? That is why, having poor boundaries.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't either, but I checked the boxes. I guess it applies. I don't understand what it means. And I feel like if like,
It's like it's kind of the thing where you let people walk all over you, you let them take advantage of you. You're like you're being hurt by someone over and over again and you're not standing up for yourself. I think that's like you're not protecting your own self.
yes, that's where I
And
landed. Like on
that's
some
kind of what that
level,
means.
yeah, but again, in the growth circle, like some of that needs to happen sometimes for the growth to happen.
Right. That's what Laura Day said. You have to bump into people out there in the world for growth to happen and move forward.
Right. Growth only happens under tension. That's
Right.
like you don't work out. These muscles don't get bigger without like putting them
Okay,
through
so
it.
I have a question for
Yes,
the
good.
bubble. Okay. So how does one know when the bump, the growth bump, bumping into someone or something is still beneficial versus when you've moved past it and the growth in that particular instance is done?
I'm laughing because they're like, oh, Laura just asked and answered her question in the question. That was amazing. And they're like, bravo. Um, so because they were kind of looking at each other and they're like, wait, she just answered it. She answered it correctly, but she did just answer it in the question. You said it. It's if you bump into someone and there's any form of tension, there is a growth. If you bump into someone and there's no tension, then there's no growth. If you bump into someone and there might have been tension at one point in your life, but there's no tension now, then you've already gone through the growth.
Yeah. And there's some things too where like you can have relationships where there's mostly no tension and every now and then some tension comes up because you're like it's like something to look at in yourself or a reflection or whatever.
Yeah, there's like not every relationship is meant to be a growth-oriented relationship. Some relationships are there just to provide love and support and lightness and humor and like just all the feel-good stuff. And then there are those relationships where it kind of comes in and out, like the growth happens. And then there are the relationships where it's just, it feels like it's growth all the time, 100% growth.
Oh, this perfectly describes the connections in the cards, the cosmic vibes in the cards, which you can look up on our website, by the way.
Yes. So they're like, none of those are like are deemed good or bad. They just are. Those just, they just exist as they exist. You decide. So as a human, we decide if something becomes too painful. As a soul, though, the soul may opt for wanting to be in the fire because the soul wants to experience the growth. Think of it as if it were a video game, right? The soul constantly wants to get to the next level, the next level, the next level, the next level, the next level. The human may be like, fuck, I'm tired. I got to tap out. I got to take a break. I don't want to play this game anymore. So the soul is not at all going to have a problem with the tension or the fire or the pain because it sees the underlying benefit of the growth. Well, it sees the hopeful underlying benefit of the growth. The human still has to learn it, but the soul is always going to be up for the lesson, the experience. It's the human that decides if it's too much or when it's time to just be done with it. What was your question?
I don't know. I'm sure it made sense back when I asked it.
I'm sure it did too. You asked and answered it.
Oh yeah, it's just about like how you know when the growth is over, basically.
Oh yeah, it's over because the triggers that like there's no tension.
There's no tension, which sometimes can feel just kind of neutral. Like, oh yeah, I just don't care about this anymore.
They want to use the weight example again because most of us can relate to lifting something heavy. So they're like, imagine the first time that you pick up a 10-pound weight. It's heavy. And like, maybe you can like do a bicep curl a couple of times, maybe you can't at all. But eventually over time, right, you keep practicing, you keep going through like the muscles tearing and then rebuilding and the soreness. But then eventually that 10-pound weight feels light if you keep at it. And there's no resistance. So then you move to a 15-pound weight or a 20-pound weight or whatever. So it's the same thing with the human tensions and the boundaries and the triggers. Ideally, they don't like that I use the word ideally. If you're, they're like, no, not ideal. If you have a growth-oriented mindset, better, then you would keep working the 10-pound weight. And when there is no more resistance, when the muscle has gotten strong enough that it doesn't feel that it's efforting at 10 pounds, then it would be neutral. Then it would be enjoyable. It also would not be challenging. So you might look to find a challenge in a different way.
Right. So it's your choice if you're like wanting to enter into vacation lifestyle.
Right, it
or
is.
not.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, you might just be chiseled enough and you don't need to work out anymore.
right.
I'm fit and firm. I don't want this anymore.
Right. But also, I'm so curious because, like, kind of thought the point of existence was to learn to find the joy in everything.
Oh, yeah, they like this. They're like, yeah, yeah, but also think about the people who love going to the gym. They love it. They thrive on it. It like releases the endorphins and it creates a sense of joy and accomplishment. And so yes,
Well, that's
absolutely.
a soul, it could be a soul level type of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So again, they're like, there are people who just surround themselves with the people that they feel good around. Nothing wrong with that. Totally fine. And then there are other people who like want to have the experience of that growth. Also, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of conversations that I don't know if I'm going to have with my new therapist or not. Especially since I'm paying her for it. I don't know. Just be like,
Well,
yo, Maria, listen to my podcast and then like, let's do a call on your own time. Don't charge me for it.
that's hilarious. She'll probably have some good shit though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do we feel like that's wrapped up?
I think so. I think we can put a boundary around that one.
Yeah. Just circle it. Make sure you close the edge of it so it gets the whole thing. There's no
make it
leaky point.
You can make your boundary look like a heart if that makes you feel better.
That's right. That wraps this episode of One Card Shy. Did you love it? Leave us a review, share it with your friends, and sign up for our monthly crown straightener. Bonus, you'll get our free Claim Your Crown guide when you subscribe.
And be sure to find us on Instagram and check out our website. Both are rainworld.co. All the links are below. See you next time, Queens.